One thing I'm having a lot of success with is UV resin.
Is it really thick, Joaquin?
Yes, it is. It's very thick.
UV resin.
I'm using Total Boat, and it doesn't really, if you're moving fast, it doesn't run. I'm having a lot of success. I'm actually really happy with it.
Are you using the tearing gun with it?
I have an absolutely ridiculous UV flashlight.
I have one of those too. Why do we have those, Joaquin?
Yes.
I know, right? It's ludicrous, but I love it. It has like 103 LED UV lights or something in it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, if I think one of the dogs is peed in a house, I can find it in a hurry with that thing. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, yeah. But the UV resin, I've been using it to fill cracks and things, and I'm telling you, it's better than CA glue because it's more solid, more reliable, and it doesn't crack. I've been playing with it for about 3 weeks now, and I have no complaints, absolutely no complaints. UV resin may change a lot of things.
Does it solidify inside a joint or just on the surface?
Well, you have to be able to get the light. That's the only drawback to UV resin, is you have to be able to get the light into the joint. Now it's clear, so you should be able to spray it down in, or spray it. You should be able to shine it down in, and because it's clear, it'll refract and get in there. But the reason I decided to try UV resin is because I have, when I was in college back in the 1900s, I broke a tooth and had to get a porcelain crown. Well, porcelain's harder than enamel, so it broke the tooth underneath. And finally, the VA, after a long time, decided they would fix my teeth, and they put UV resin, glued on resin crown on both teeth, and it's all sealed with UV resin. And I'm going to tell you, it's better than the porcelain. It's better than the old fillings. It's amazing what they're doing with UV resin right now. I cracked a tooth up here too. I just cracked it. They literally squeezed UV resin in the crack, hit it with the light for 2 minutes, and then just polished it up. And it's incredible. Now, because I recognize the name of the brand, I bought Total Boat UV resin. And I can tell you, I'm having amazing. I did peridot inlay in a ring with the UV resin. I've patched cracks with sanding dust and UV resin. I haven't tried coffee grounds yet, but everywhere you would use CA glue, if you haven't strong enough UV light, I'm finding I'm getting incredible results with UV resin. And I had a pen maker tell me for label casting, get the label printing, the adhesive backed labels, and do your label printing and stick them on just like you were going to pour it, but then just layer UV resin. And if you think about it, it might take you half an hour, 45 minutes to cure the resin with the flashlight. But compare that to pouring labels and then waiting overnight in the pressure pot. Think how much time you're saving, especially if you're doing 1 or 2 off. I'm having incredible success with UV resin. I'm still playing with it. I'm still, will it do this? Will it do that? But I have had more successes than failures.
I'd love to see an example if you could.
You got to give me a few minutes to go find it, but yes, I have.
Of course.
So I actually have 2 examples for you of using the UV resin. So I thought this was a failed glue up. This is hard maple, bubinga, East India rosewood, and bubinga. You can't even tell that the Type Bond 3 and the clamp up didn't work. That at the seams in several spots, like right there, I don't think you can see it on camera, but right there, that seam right here, that was a little wide. That's backfilled with UV resin. And You cannot tell. You can't tell. I can run my fingernail down the wood and you can't tell. So that's one example of UV resin. Another is, so this bowl, this is some of the box elder I got from the Greensboro Golf Club. And see those cracks there? That's all UV resin and shavings from the bowl. Now this side, because it was so deep and heavy, that's CA and African blackwood shavings for the bug damage. But the cracks are actually UV resin and shavings, and you can see the UV resin is clear, so you can see through that spot. You can't see it from this side. You can only see it from the bottom side, and it's solid. I can pour water in here and it will not leak. But that UV resin with the shavings worked really well. So what I've been using, only because I recognize the brand, is Total Boat. And since I know like Doug Moore, there's a bunch of people who are resident rangers who use Total Boat. I decided if I was going to gamble on UV resin, I'd try a brand I recognize, and it works really well. And on Amazon, you can buy a kit that comes with this darling, precious little flashlight, which is not bad. But I went ahead and spent like $35 and bought this, which is a little bit better. And this is the UV Beast 2. I'm not endorsed or anything, but this works a little bit better and a little faster because there's just simply more wattage shining into your piece.
Yeah.
And what I found is, like here, it took about 1.5 minutes to cure the resin. And what I did was I literally set the flashlight right so I was shining straight through where the cuts were, so that the light shined straight through the resin. So I would turn the lathe so that I was shooting at 90 degrees to the 45-degree angle, but straight through the piece, and then shine it and leave it for about 2 minutes. And the only drawback to UV resin is you have to give the light enough time to cure the resin. That's the only bad thing I've found about it. It turns as good as, if not better than, Alumilite. It sands just like any other resin. And there are other brands. The only reason I bought Total Boat is because I recognize it, and I know a lot of people who use a lot of resin use Total Boat. So it's a brand name I trust. That's the only reason I chose Total Boat. Woodcraft has their own brand of UV resin. I think Klingspor might have their own distribution of some brand of UV resin. And as far as I know, this all comes from the same source. I don't know. So to cure, just like it says on the bottle, 2 to, what does it say? 2 to 10 minutes. And with the light this powerful, I think this is 150 watts. 2 minutes is more than enough. And it turns just like any other resin that you'd put in a pressure pot. Or I honestly, as far as the tools are concerned, can't tell the difference between this and Alumilite. I can't. It turns exactly the same. So the only caveat I have to it is the light has to be able to penetrate. So it takes longer to cure when you have, like, because I put shavings into these cracks here. I stuffed shavings down in there. That takes longer to cure because you have to give the light time. Refraction works, it helps, but you have to give it enough time to do its job. But I don't know if you can hear that. You can't hear those cracks. It's as smooth as can be. It's just, it worked. It worked really well. Every time I use this stuff, I'm impressed. And I also discovered this is very, very thick. This is highly viscous. Hit it with your torch or a heat source for about 3 seconds, and it lightens up and loosens and capillary action works and it draws down into the cracks, and it just, this is good. This is amazing. This is a game changer. I'm telling
So-
you, if you need something that changes everything, try it.
But it requires being able to be hit by the light in order to cure.
You have, yeah, you have
Yeah,
to get,
so-
like, if you can't, it cures, the only way it cures is UV. Now,
Yeah.
again, though, I have 3 teeth that are all, it's all UV resin. So as long as the light is exposed long enough, if you think about how light works, light travels in a straight line until it doesn't, because it reflects. So like in these cracks, if I just hit it with the UV light for 30 seconds, the surface is dry, but I could actually mush it down, right? But if I hit it for 2 minutes, that gives enough time for light to refract and bounce off of any reflective surface available, and solidify everything within its path. I think the time is not a matter of it takes 2 minutes to cure, as much as it takes that much time for, as each part of it crystallizes, for it to diffract light further in. I think it cures. I put this, so this, remember, this is sitting on, remember, this is sitting on the lathe, right? And I'm putting this resin in it,
Yeah.
and then I'm holding a light to it. So because I have this nice bead of viscous, it's very thick, it's very viscous, probably twice as viscous, as twice as thick as honey. I put this bead on it, right? And it wants to drip. Gravity wants to hold it. I turn the flashlight on, literally just go, and it stops running. So the surface immediately set and held it up the line, up the slope, and it held it. So I think it's the reason for time is as each layer solidifies, and we're talking at a molecular level, each layer solidifies, then it begins to diffract the light and send it through the rest of it. I haven't done enough reading to know that that's exactly what's happening, but logically that's what makes sense, because literally as it's running down the side of the wood, if you just hit it with the light, it stops. Immediately the surface tension freezes it, and then it just starts solidifying deeper and deeper and deeper until it works its way through. That's the best explanation I can give without being a physicist, because we're literally talking about physics here.
Right. And then by any chance, what's the tensile strength on it? Does it list it on the bottle?
Oh, I don't know. I can tell you it's better than CA glue. 'Cause remember, CA glue.
Well, CA is not structural. Period.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, I mean, it's a resin, so it doesn't say on the bottle.
Oh, that's fine.
I will-
I'll look it up.
I will guess it's at least as strong as any other total boat resin product as far as bonding. And it does, I will caution you, if you don't want stains on the surface, I actually applied it like 3 times as I was working this, paring this down, because this is only,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a thin bowl. So as I was paring it down, I would uncover more crack and have to refill it. It stains just like CA glue, it'll seep out. So I was hitting the surface with shellac and then putting it on so it didn't actually stain the surface. So in that way, it's just like CA, where if you don't cover the surface
Yeah.
so that it doesn't bleed, this
Yeah.
will bleed.
Typical adhesive, it's going to stain your
Yeah.
surface. So,
Yeah, but again, it's liquid. I mean, and I'll show you, hang on, let me see. What do I have? I'll show you the viscosity. This stuff it's incredible. I love this stuff. I can't complain about it.
Oh, higher.
So there it
Okay,
is
now
right
we-
there.
Yeah.
See, it's holding. It's still running. I mean, it's liquid. Let's stop it. I
There,
don't know
it
if you
stopped.
see, it's
It
not
stopped
moving.
now.
Yeah, it's not moving. It's that fast.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think this is going to revolutionize wood turning, just like it's revolutionized dentistry. Remember, They're
Oh, yeah.
putting crowns in people's mouths using
know.
essentially this.
Yep.
And I can't complain about my UV resin teeth. They're amazing.
Will sunlight trigger it?
Yes. Yeah. So, okay. So here's
Just at
another
a slower
thought.
rate.
I have a friend who's
Magnifying
getting
glass.
into pro fishing, right? And this is a classic lure. And he's talking about, well, how could we make it faster to seal these, right? Well, this is a very thick viscosity, the total boat. If I can find a thinner viscosity UV, because you have to, this is poplar in there. This is a classic. This is a lure, LOHR lure. They're not made anymore, but it's a classic. But you have to be able to make this waterproof because you don't want the wood to soak up water and swell and change the shape of the lure. If I can find a thin enough UV resin, all I have to do is dip it, put it on a rack, and set it out in the yard in the sun. UV light, sun being the primary source, cures it. So I can run 15, 20, 30, 50 of these, dip them in UV resin, hang them on a rack, take the rack out into the sunlight. In 5 minutes, they're cured, they're waterproof, ready to go.
Well,
It's
There's a
Yeah.
couple of those.
as
There's a couple
if
of
any,
those.
if we're going to call anything a miracle substance, I would say UV curing resin is a miracle substance. And somebody, when I was,
All right,
when
we
I was
gotta-
using it live, somebody asked, is it 2-part? Yeah, it is. Resin and light. It's 2-part. Hit it with the light, it cures.
All right, very good, Joaquin. All right, let's go to Gordon. Gordon, what you got, buddy?
UV resin. I left it outside. I got it at Michael's. You just spread it.
You covered the whole thing with it?
Yep.
Okay.
You take a
Nice.
little drop and just spread it.
Huh.
Then you can
Nice.
sand it. This is sanded. This is sanded and buffed. So it shines a little better.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so it would take forever with a flashlight. So I left it outside in the sun.
You got that at Michael's?
Yep.
How long did you leave it outside?
I left it out for a couple hours.
It looks nice.
Did it run or did you have to fix the?
Well, I spread it. So you get a thin layer.
Yeah.
So you just put a drop, spread it. Then you just, of course, you're going to get some ripples from the spreading, but I like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it filled the cracks.
What was the name of that?
Blue Moon Studio. So if you want to try it, you can, Hobby Lobby probably has one. They probably all have them.
I've used that same UV resin and it does work very, very well. I've even tinted it. Tinting it slows down the UV action, but it does still work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, filled the cracks. I buff it with
Very
the
good.
floorboard pads.
Buffed it with what?
Flooring, you know, the buffing machines,
Oh, okay.
you get the pads,
Weed.
cut them in a circle and put it on your sanding.
Yeah, make it a bonnet for your oscillating sander
Yep, just use a drill.
or a drill. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Good
all
stuff.
I have.
All right, right on. Thank you.
Very nice.
All right, Eddie, let's go back to you, and then we probably need to go to our demo.